Sting on his way out.
Mm-hmm.
And Sting's an old school guy. And I think in the same way with Taker, like Taker winning his last match wasn't really Taker winning his last match because it was one of those cinematic matches. Like it wasn't like the old school Taker type of match. But this is an old school match. It's a tag team match, and they're the champions. I don't see them just vacating the titles because Sting is retiring. Like, what would give? They're building up Nicholas and Matthew Jackson as these monster heels. And what would give those two more heat than pinning Sting's shoulders to the mats, probably by some nefarious way, and winning the tag team championships? Like, it gets those two mega heat. Like, we're talking, I think, if they do this right with Nicholas and Matt Jackson, which this is probably my favorite version of the Young Bucks since AEW has started. We're talking like 6 months ago, Dominic Mysterio level heat that you could get for these two if you do this right over the next couple of weeks.
Well, along those lines, is that how Revolution ends? Is it the Bucks standing over Sting with the belts, with the suits that still have the blood on it, and it's, WCW in the 90s and just trash in the ring? Is that how Revolution ends?
I mean, it can't, can it? Like, they actually then, if Sting is losing, they actually then have to main event with the triple threat match, right? Like, if Sting was winning, then Sting can main event. But if Sting is losing, like, I don't think we can do that. But again, Sting's an old school guy. And the way you always do it, whether it's you're leaving the territory, whether it's you're retiring, the old adage in professional wrestling is you go out on your back.
Right. And I mean, that would add so much to the Bucks. Like, this character is amazing. Like, wrestling in the suits and the hat last night, like, they're doing everything that's just perfect.
Wrestling in the suits was just, it was so good.
And actually changing the entrance music, like not doing the whole, Jericho still playing Judas, even though he's a heel, like changing all that stuff. Like, it would add a ton. I just wonder if they have the balls to end the show like that, because they keep billing Revolution like Revolution Sting's final match, Revolution Sting's final match, when they're talking about everything on that card, that it almost feels like that is the main event.
It does. I mean, and you've built it so much. Like, you're going to Greensboro because of the historic significance of Sting, right? It almost feels like if you would have done Ric Flair's last match and Ric Flair's opening, right? Like, Ric Flair's last match wasn't actually the main event of the card. It kind of feels like it has to be the main event. But also, I don't know how you close out a pay-per-view in 2024 with Sting lying on the mat looking up at the lights as Nicholas and Matt in their bloody suits are holding the AEW Tag Team Championship.
I mean, you do it and then Sting just sells for like 20, 30 minutes. We go off air and then he says goodbye to the fans. Like, you do it that way, maybe?
Well, I mean, yes, the goodbye to the fans has to be done like after you've signed off. Like, we can't have a Clash in the Castle situation. Like, can't have that here. But again, it just feels, everything the way they've been building it feels like Sting's going out on his back. Which, by the way, I'm completely okay with and 100% respect, because again, like it continues. The business goes on without you, and Sting realizes that, and that's why that's the adage. You go out on your back because you want to give that rub to someone. And when this thing started, I'm like, oh, they're going against Nick and Matt Jackson. But then when they became Nicholas and Matt, and they continued to, find Tony Schiavone $1,000, and they find the one, production guy $500 a couple of weeks ago, and they continued to kind of lean into that. Like, this has been my favorite iteration, and it would give them a really good rub, which I did not think I'd be saying, a month ago. But here we are, and storyline wise, it makes sense. Passing the torch line, it makes sense. You can then have a, ticked off Darby Allin begin a chase for those two, maybe with a different tag team partner, maybe just being a vigilante and trying to be a thorn in their side by himself. Like, you can do a lot of different things, I think, off of that. But if you're a fan of Sting, I think you need to grow accustomed to the fact that in a couple of weeks here, he's going to be losing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think we all sort of always thought the end of Sting would be him versus Darby getting the pin, getting that moment of going over his mentor. And then we saw him go this route, and we've seen the reports that he basically handpicked the Bucks. And the Bucks as heels, as champions, going out like that makes the whole division stronger. Because now you have so many face tag teams. You have the Top Flight. You have FTR. Like, so many teams that can then chase the Bucks and hopefully elevate that tag team division to what it once was in AEW.
By the way, thank God we're not doing Sting versus Darby.
Really?
Like, thank God. Well, I mean, I imagine Darby doing one of those suicide dives, and right. I know Sting has taken. I know Sting has taken some calculated risks. Yeah. You know, like, and who did he suplex off the stage and nearly missed the damn table?
Yeah. Well, was it last week where he took the dive where it was very close? The week they won the titles, like, he almost missed his landing. He got a little close recently.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And, like, Darby being the speeding bullet that he is, just flying, like, I don't need to see Sting actually die in his last match. And as hard as Darby, because Darby only has one speed. Like, Darby can't, like, oh, I'm going against my mentor Sting, I've got to dial it back. Like, that's not possible. Right. Like, that's absolutely not possible. I would not need, as much as we were worried about when Punk came back and wrestled Darby Allin, going, ooh, first match Pat taking that suicide dive. Like, I don't need to see an over 60-year-old Sting taking that suicide dive.
Yeah, his chest probably would not be ready to take Darby straight into it. So it'll be fun. I'm sure they'll do the tornado rules again, so that way you can hide them a little bit. But, like, we know that match is going to deliver. This pay-per-view continues to be built out weeks in advance.